Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today we're going to go to Indonesia, and we're going to check out this case, which was considered like the O.J. Simpson case of Indonesia, because it was 4 months in the media, massive cameras in the courtroom, people gossiping everywhere, 24 hours a day. This case, in which this woman here, Jessica Wongso, actually, was accused of killing her friend. All right. Let me just tell you where I got what has brought all this back to light recently is a Netflix documentary. It is this one. It is called Ice Cold: Murder, Coffee, and Jessica Wongso. All right. So before I get going on all of this, I just want to welcome the people that are in the chat room. This is a live show for patrons, and so Nina is here, Jill is here, Lila is here, Sky Ricky is here, Molly is here, Mary is here, Bluebell Rose is here, Nancy is here. Let's see who else is here. Olga's here, and Lila, who comes out right away and says this: I think that Jessica Kumala Wongso is a cunning, jealous sociopath who belongs right where she is, in prison. Well, Lila is not one to hold her tongue. Are you, Lila? Which I appreciate, because I guess you've learned a little bit about this case and you have an opinion on it. And so, good. So I'm going to go into some, there's really interesting things about this case. And when I first saw the movie, or the documentary, shall I say, I was a little confused, to tell you the truth. I was like, what's going on here? What are they trying to say? It was kind of like a little all over the place. And then I had to go research it. But it's a little difficult because I don't speak Indonesian, and there seems to be a lack of the information I would like out there. And I'll explain that to you, why this makes this case so difficult to determine whether she's fairly convicted or wasn't fairly convicted, whether she's guilty of the crime or not guilty of the crime. But the documentary kind of is all over the place. So it's a little difficult. You have all these questions. You're like, wish you could get them answered. And I did do all my research to try to answer them. I answered some of them, but I'm going to bring up a lot that were not answered. Before I get going, I do want to say to the folks out there, if you'd like to be in the chat room and like to support this educational channel, please join Patreon, and the link in the description below. It's $5 a month. Supports the channel. You can come to 8 lives a month. The 4 case shows every week, and the 4K shows once a week, and the hangout once a week as well. If you can't do that, please do like and subscribe. That helps with the algorithm, keeps this channel going as well. Check my playlist. Please do hit the bell for notifications. And there's other ways to support the channel. I have my books below, and there's always a little dollar sign. Anyway, all right, let me go on now to this case. It really is quite fascinating, but I had so many issues with the prosecution. And I usually have more issues with the defense than the prosecution. But in this case, oh, Lord, do I have issues with it. And I want to talk about what is evidence, what is physical evidence, what is circumstantial evidence, what is behavioral evidence, and when are you just making stuff up based on stuff that's not really provable. In other words, you see something and you say, oh, this is what's happening, and you don't know that it's really happening, or you assign a motive to something you don't know is truly a motive. So this case, that's the problem with this case. I saw a whole bunch of that going on, and I saw it going on also on the internet and some other YouTube shows, where people would assign meaning to things without having any strong indication that those meanings had any meaning. So let me read you just the very basics. And today I'm not going to go to Wikipedia. I'm actually going to go and this is basically it's called this Netflix's Jessica Wongso documentary explained, because I think people did have trouble understanding it. Okay, the so-called coffee murder case that gripped Indonesia. All right. Netflix's latest true crime documentary, Ice Cold: Murder, Coffee, and Jessica Wongso, revisits the death of Mirna Salihin, who collapsed in 2016 after drinking an iced coffee, which was suspected to be laced with cyanide at a Jakarta cafe. So this was a public location. We're not talking about, you know how at home, wifey wants to get rid of hubby and she starts poisoning his food and stuff. This is not like that. It's not like the Australian woman who was making beef Wellington for people, and they all keel over after she feeds them at home. This is in public, in the daytime, in a very popular cafe. So this is one of the things that makes it so unusual. And also, they were not a married couple. There wasn't a custody battle. There wasn't, I want to run off with somebody else. These women were friends for years. So anyway, it was suspected she had drank an iced coffee that was laced with cyanide. She was 27 years old. She was rushed to the hospital, but died en route. The ensuing 4-month murder trial, which was televised in Indonesia and received widespread media attention, saw Salihin's friend, who was visiting from Australia at the time, Jessica Wongso, accused of premeditated poisoning. Well, it's hard not to be premeditated. Theoretically, if you're putting cyanide in somebody's drink, it's premeditated. She was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in jail. Prison, actually. So far, she served half of that. Well, how is that possible? Couldn't be half already. The trial quickly became polarized and high profile, inviting a comparison in the Netflix documentary to the 1995 criminal trial of O.J. Simpson in the U.S. Well, it just may be the documentary people who threw that one in. All right, so what's the basic explanation? Those involved in the trial told Netflix's producers, and they edited the crap out of it, so you never know how much you're getting, is all of it, how there was little concrete evidence of Wongso's guilt, with limited CCTV footage in the cafe where Salihin drank the coffee Wongso had ordered. After Salihin collapsed, a worker at the cafe told the Netflix producers that she was the main one. I don't know why they're saying he, but there was also a he. There's a she and a he, and I'll get to that later. That's really interesting because there were two people who were involved with the coffee issue that worked for the cafe. Tried the coffee and it tasted really rotten, but didn't suffer any ill effects. During the televised trial, Wongso's lawyer opened and smelled a bottle containing the coffee that was supposedly laced with cyanide, claiming in the camera there was no cyanide within. Hold on a second. Well, maybe there's cyanide in here. Maybe I shouldn't drink any more of it. Oh my God. Okay. Unedited, as you can see. Okay, as a result of lack of evidence, much of the trial constituted witness statements and expert testimonies. Some of this related to Wongso's mental state, including some somewhat alarming pseudoscience relating negative mental traits to the nature of her face. This is something from way back when in Italy. I mean, years ago, there was that, I'm not blanking on who it was, but the structure of your face will determine if you're a criminal or you're not a criminal. I mean, this was dumped, I think, this was like from the 17 or 1800s. It's been a long time since I've read about this in my profiling studies. I should have looked that up before the show, but I forgot. But they were actually looking at her face and determining she was a criminal and a psychopath from the structure of her face. It was pitiful. It was really, that was quite appalling. And then the documentary also referenced Salihin's post-mortem test. A National Police Hospital worker testified that her intestines were corroded and her mouth blackened, which was consistent with cyanide poisoning. And here's where we have the start of vague stuff. A National Police Hospital worker. And who is that? What kind of worker is it? A hospital worker. What? I mean, so it gets very confusing. On the opposite side during the trial, forensic pathologists claimed there was no proof that her death was caused by cyanide poisoning. Her father, who was quite a tough guy and kind of strange, and people didn't like her father very much. He was very arrogant. These women were extremely wealthy. She was very extremely wealthy, and her father owned I don't know how much crap, but he was extremely arrogant and came across kind of creepy, shall we say. But he asked for no autopsy to be conducted on his daughter at the time. In other words, he didn't want supposedly the mother didn't want her cut up as per religion. Despite a formal request made by the police to do so. So that was not done. She did not have a full autopsy. And they said, look, if you don't get that, we can't necessarily tell how she died. So instead, a toxicology test was done 70 minutes after her death that showed no cyanide in her system. There were small traces of cyanide found in her stomach fluid in the days after her death, but not enough to have been fatal. And they said maybe it came from the embalming fluid. So we have a problem. However, there wasn't proof from any autopsy of exactly why she died, which in the United States would have wiped this case right off the face of the map right there. If you don't have a cause of death, how can you charge her with homicide? You can assume that she died of cyanide poison, even though there was no proof that she did. That's a problem. So that right up front, in reality, she shouldn't have been convicted, whether she did it or didn't do it. There was no proof of the cause of death at all. So consequently, you would think she would have walked, but due to the circumstantial evidence that the prosecution put out there, they said all the circumstantial evidence proves she poisoned the coffee. And there's one more point here, that the coffee supposedly had cyanide in it, which if the coffee itself had cyanide in it, well, why would it have cyanide in it unless somebody put the cyanide in it and then she drank it and therefore keeled over? You would think it was the cyanide from the coffee, right? So I believe that's how they won their case. The circumstantial evidence saying that she was a weirdo, a psychopath, creepy, and she didn't help herself when she was coming in and out of court. Apparently, she smiled a lot, and it creeped them out. Like she looks like super happy. Like, hey, here I am, guys. I'm in court now. Woohoo! Here's another place where she's helping. She's doing something. Look how smiley she is, and she does. She smiles a lot, which makes her kind of look. It's like not a normal reaction for someone who's being accused of a homicide of one of your best friends. So I think that the smiles that she gave, the circumstantial evidence that was brought up in court and linked to motives, I think that's what did her in. But I'm going to go back over from the beginning and tell you all the things I think are problematic in this case, and show how it shouldn't have been handled, shouldn't have been presented in court. Whether she's guilty or not, some really ridiculous things occurred in this case. I'll check your comments before I start on the actual information. Let's say, Dad was a weirdo for sure. Yeah, he was a very, that man believed in himself. I mean, he had so much money, he had so much power that he was extremely arrogant, and most people, when they watched him, were very uncomfortable around him. But obviously he did. Actually, some people thought he killed his own daughter to get the $5 million insurance policy. But he was already a massively wealthy man. It made no sense. He wasn't going to kill his daughter. And also, it made no sense that he would have known that women were getting together for this at the cafe, and she was going to order a coffee, and therefore he could hire a barista or somebody to poison her coffee and blame it on her. That's one of these totally nonsensical theories, which doesn't hold water. However, that doesn't mean the father didn't have some power to influence things. And this, I'm going to get into that possibility, because a lot of Indonesians think there's high level of corruption in the police and prosecutorial services, and people with great deal of money and power can indeed influence sometimes the system. I think her father may have done that, and I'll explain as we go through the different details of the case why I think that might be true. Burke Ramsey, that is correct. Creepy smiles when asked about his sister's murder. Yes, and what happens is it certainly makes you question, because it's not a normal response. The problem comes into, as many people point out, what is a normal response. And I have one area here where I'm going to, again, explain as we get to it, where I think her response is normal when everybody's really blowing it out of proportion. So it all depends. Sometimes we look from a very jaded point of view. In other words, that girl's guilty, therefore, and then we fit everything to the scenario we want to present. We have to be very careful of that when you're analyzing a crime, because that gets, that's not where it should be done. Let's see. Yeah. Apparently, one of the things they did was the defense expert forensic pathologist was deported. That was just a whole weird thing. I don't know what all that was exactly about. So they were trying to discredit him and get him out of there, which was a little sleazy, right? Mm-hmm. Just different things. I'm going to get to that. Sky Ricky's question. I'm going to get to that. Okay, let me go through this because I want to get to things in order. All right. So first, I want to talk about the first thing they started with was the motive as to why she would even do this. Why would she want to kill somebody? She hadn't actually seen her in, I think it was a couple of years. All right. Why would she come in? She was living in Australia. She returned to Indonesia and she meets up. It was only the second time she had met up with her since she'd been back. Why would you want to kill her? And this is the motive thing. As they point out, you don't have to prove motive, but you kind of want to, if you're going to go to that level of somehow procuring cyanide, which, by the way, they never could prove she actually got hold of any cyanide. They didn't even know, they had no evidence they found no evidence where she was staying, no evidence of her going to any store to try to get it. It's hard. It's not the easiest thing to get. How did she get a hold of cyanide? They had never had any trail for that one at all that proved that she actually bought or purchased or got hold of any cyanide. So that, I think, is another weak part of the case. No physical evidence she ever had the cyanide. So let's go to why would you want to kill her? I mean, that's pretty major. All right. So one of the things they try to do in this film is to talk about how she was a creepy friend, essentially, that, you know, that friend that you don't know how to get rid of. And she was getting real uncomfortable with her and didn't want to be around her because she was a psycho. But that's not really, as far as I can see it, any of the evidence out there, the way it went. A lot of people said that she was bubbly and fun and you know, just a kind of a cool person to be around. She actually brought together when they were in Australia. So they were in Australia. Hold on a second. Let me go back to where they were in Australia. They both went there for school. So they're both Indonesian. They went to Australia for school. And while they were there, oh, wait a minute. I gotta check out your comment there. Hold on a second. I just saw it go by. Phrenology. Thank you. Oh, yes, that's true. Also Nazi Germany. Yes, phrenology. Thank you for coming up with a word for me. I forgot it. I still can't remember the guy who did it. Maybe I should just look it up. Because, I mean, I couldn't believe somebody brought this up in court, because who does that anymore? I mean, we're not in the 1700s. I can't spell it. Here we go. Okay. A study of the shape of the skull. And that was, I think the guy's name started with an L. What's the history of it? History. Oh, wow. Lavater. I don't remember that guy's name. Well, there were a whole pile of them. Wow. Who knew that there were so many people that were totally into this? Oh, that's going to be a whole nother show. All right. Let me get to, so essentially they went to Australia to go to school, some design school. And she was very bubbly and all that. And she brought together her friend Mirna. She met Mirna, and she also brought together this whole group of girls. They all became friends, and they all hung out together. They had a great time. So she says here, about 8 years ago, when we were both studying in Australia, and there they are, and they're happy together, all the girls to get together. And every time we met, we always reconnected. So they had a lot of fun together. When we were in college, we would go out to eat or drink coffee. They were having a good time. And I see no evidence that over the years that she had any fear of her. They were friends, hung out, had a good time together, and all was good. She started dating a very nice man. This guy here, a very nice man, who she eventually married. And Jessica dated some guy that was kind of, shall we say, questionable. All right. But she seemed to really have a thing for him. So she really fell for this guy hard. But the guy was like kind of somebody maybe you shouldn't be involved in. So what happened was this. She had left and she had gone back to Indonesia. And then she had returned on a vacation to Australia. And they got together for dinner. Now, I've heard two different stories about this thing. So again, I don't know where the truth is. One story is that she invited just her so girls' dinner, but she showed up with her boyfriend, fiance, which didn't please her terribly well because she was looking forward to just hanging out with her. And then I heard the other story that no, they hung out together. But supposedly during that dinner, she got a little like vicious about the guy she was dating and was really quite rude about it. In the middle of the dinner, she's like, you should dump this guy. Why are you bothering with him? And she got pretty nasty about it. And her own husband, who became her husband, he said this: Mirna might have been harsh to Jessica. Why are you such an idiot? Why would you want a guy like him? Now, interestingly, her dad says she's just like him. She's a pit bull. Now, in other places, you see that she's just the sweetest, kindest, most wonderful person on the face of the earth. And it's so soft and sweet. But her own father says, no, she's a pit bull, right? Her husband is saying, she could be rough. She could go straight to the point and really nail you. So, a lot of people blame their relationship, the separateness that came after that she was a whack job. And what happened was during the dinner, apparently, she was pretty nasty about the guy she was seeing, who probably she shouldn't have been seeing. She was probably right, but still, she got up and left. Now, I don't know where they were in the middle of dinner. I don't know if they were near done. I don't know if she paid the bill and said, look, I don't want to hear any more of this. And she left, but it caused a separation between the two. She went back to Indonesia because she lived there now. And she got married to her boyfriend in this very, very splashy wedding. And she invited, of that group of 4 girls, I guess the other 2 girls, not her, were invited and she was not invited. And so they had that rift. So she didn't go to the wedding. Meanwhile, her life kind of spun out of control. She had repeated suicide attempts. She was like obsessed with this guy. He eventually put a restraining order on her. She drank too much. She crashed her vehicle into a nursing home, not on purpose. She just lost control, although people are saying it was on purpose. And the place she worked for eventually fired her. And interesting enough, the place she worked for, the woman there now claims, at least in the courtroom, that a witness says this, but it doesn't mean the witness is telling the truth. We're at a point now where she's on trial for murdering her. So how people view her, especially, let's say the woman didn't like her, that's why she fired her to begin with. And she's like, oh, I'm all gung-ho to say that she's a whack job. Also, the boyfriend stated that she was uncomfortable after that dinner of being around her without somebody with her, which I don't understand, because she supposedly never threatened any of her friends. She didn't threaten her during dinner, and we don't hear about that. So why would she be afraid to be around her when she was the one that caused the problem? So, see, there's a lot of just mishy-mashy stuff. So what we have is she troubled? Yes. She seemed to be a happy girl who fell apart over the relationship with this guy. And that's as much as I find that is proof of anything. Outside of the crap, she does a creepy smiling thing, which, it's unfortunate. But there's other times she speaks perfectly reasonably. I don't know why she smiled so much when she was in public. Maybe she did enjoy the attention. Maybe her life was in the toilet at that time. And yeah, I've been charged with homicide, but hey, people are paying attention to me. So she smiles. Does it make her a killer? Not necessarily. So what we have here is no proof from the past that she is homicidal. But this is what they tried to make it during the show. During the trial. Now, the next thing that happens is, this is where they come up with motive. That she wanted her dead because She didn't get invited. She didn't get invited to her wedding, and she was doing better than her. And some people will say, because she wasn't as cute as her, she wasn't as beautiful as her. So she was jealous of her. She was jealous of her look. She was jealous of her life. She was jealous of her that she had this fairy tale wedding, and she met the perfect guy. And there she was, returning to Indonesia without a job, even though she's rich, family's rich, returning to Indonesia, bummed out. So she decides they go to dinner, everything's fine, but the next plan is to get them to come to the coffee shop and kill her. Now, that's what's driving me crazy. Hold on. Wow, that's really annoying. Okay, I'm going to check some of your comments while I'm here. High school crap. Actually, we're in college, I think, at that point. The motive is weak, Lauren says. Not that you really need one. True, the motive is weak. She could have all kinds of crap brewing in her little brain. So it could be true that she was just jealous of her, just like, I'm going to knock her off. Maybe it's true. But my point is about evidence. You're in a court of law, and you're saying that because what? Because she got married and didn't invite her to the wedding, she wanted to kill her. I mean, that's jumping to conclusions. That's a really big jump. Could it be true? Sure. Maybe if you have a whole bunch of other evidence, then it works. But this is part of the problem I'm seeing in this trial, though, is that they are creating a fiction to match a scenario that would help get her convicted. So now let's go to the day this all happens. And this is where I find some of the most concerning. This is where they say the circumstantial evidence lies. That they go to this club. All right. Let's see what we have here. All right. All right. So not a club. It's a cafe. It's a very, very fancy cafe. All right. So the concept here is that there's different stories about this too, as to who really planned the day out. But anyway, let's say she planned the day out, as some people believe she did. All right. Let me read you what happened that day. Hold on a second. All right. Right here. All right. So now let's see. All right, so now she's in Indonesia visiting. Oh no, she's returned. Jessica wanted to gather. I'm reading this from, by the way, the evidence locker. Okay, they also put in stuff that's just somebody's personal imagination, shall we say? I'm going to point it out as we go along, because this is where I think the trial just went wacko. All right, so they went to dinner. It was uneventful, but Jessica said this was where she heard about Mirna's and Arief's wedding for the first time. So she didn't know they got married, I guess. It must have made for awkward dinner conversation. Really? Why? Because you say so. How do we know? Again, this is where somebody starts fictionalizing. But not much more about this evening is known. We also don't know if they had awkward dinner conversation. Maybe she just went, oh, you married him? Oh, cool. There's not really proof that she was upset about it. Unless, and it's funny because her husband doesn't say at that dinner that she was upset about anything, or that, that she came home and said, oh my God, she was flipped out because, so no, as far as I know, nobody says that she was flipped out about that. All right. Jessica wanted to gather the girls for coffee and suggested they all meet up in January, which is a little ways off. We're talking a month later. On the WhatsApp chat group, Jessica was the one who invited Mirna, Hani, and Vera. So there were going to be 4 girls. And this is important too. 4 girls. Keep this in mind. It's going to be her and 3 other girls. Okay. They arranged to meet on Wednesday, January 6th at a cafe in the Grand Indonesian shopping mall. And this was a posh cafe, and she was very excited about it. And what they did was, when the day came, Jessica was eager to confirm the coffee date. Around 1 p.m., she said, girls, I'll treat you to juice and book a table. Mirna replied to the group saying, hello, Jess. And she said, which one do you want? And like, where do we should go? We go. After a while, ignoring the question, we don't know that that's true. Mirna asked where they should meet. Jessica answers, Olivier. Looks like it's Olivier. I would say Olivier, but in the people from Indonesia seem to say Olivier. All right. Olivier is an upscale cafe inside the upmarket Grand Indonesian shopping mall. All right. For wealthy socialites, this was a good place to see and be seen. Mirna replied, oh, yeah, delicious. Jessica responded almost immediately saying, based on Honey's suggestion. All right. Right away here, we have this idea that the only reason she said it was based on Honey's suggestion was she's trying to get out of saying she picked the place. Do we know this is true, that she picked the place for a specific purpose to kill her, and she wanted that place because supposedly she hadn't really been there, so she really wouldn't know the place that well. But she says Honey suggested it, and I say we all have the people saying, aha, she's just trying to blame Honey for why they ended up at this location. All right. And she says, Mirna says, oh, I love their Vietnamese iced coffee. By telling her friend what her favorite drink on the menu was, Mirna effectively sealed her own fate. No, she didn't. Doesn't matter what she ordered. She would get poison in any drink. So what the heck does it have to do with anything? This is stupid. Sorry, evidence locker, but that's just dumb. She effectively sealed her own fate, completely unaware that coffee wasn't the only thing brewing that day. But we don't know what else is brewing that day. All right. By telling, so the friends arranged to meet at 5 p.m. Now, there's a lot of questionable stuff about the exact time frame of everything and why things went down the way they did. All right. They supposedly arranged to meet at 5 p.m., but CCTV footage shows Jessica Wongso, sorry, I keep pronouncing it wrong, Wongso, arriving more than 90 minutes early. Now, some say this is because she had the big plan and she had to get everything ordered, and she was like surveilling the place and all this stuff. Other people have said, do you know the traffic problem in Jakarta? She may have been coming from an area where she just wanted to make sure she was there on time. She also was planning this. So she was the hostess of this whole thing. Maybe she wanted to get there, make sure she could get there on time. Maybe she didn't think she was going to get there that quickly, but she did. So she actually arrived way earlier than she thought. Now she's going to kill some time by shopping. But meanwhile, she checked out the place. Okay, this is cool. So she comes in, walks around looking for a table. She walks around briefly. And then 2 minutes later, she leaves. Okay, she's looking around going, okay, I think so. This will work. All right. For what? For a get-together or for a murder? All right. So she leaves. At 4:15, so she returns with 3 large paper shopping bags from a bath shop. Supposedly, I love how they put the word supposedly presents for her friends. Okay, let's take a look at this. And this is something I think is just quite annoying. All right, so here is a picture of, let's see where she's at here. Okay, so these are the bags, supposedly, Bath and Body Works bags, okay? And she bought 3 of them. And the claim is that the bags had a small soap in it, a small liquid soap in each one, like really small. Like the bags are the purpose, and she just had to get some soap so she could get the bags. Now, first of all, she's a wealthy person. They're trying to sound like she was really super cheap, so that clearly it wasn't really a gift. It was just an excuse to get the bags. Okay, so, and the idea is that the bags eventually are going to be what she blocks the CCTV camera with so she can poison the coffee behind it, you see. So the claim is that she bought some cheap crap, some small crap, and had them in overly large bags. Like she asked for overly large bags for these little items. All right, so I would stop right here. I would love to see, I would go to the bath store. First of all, I want to know what she actually bought, Was it a perfectly nice little present? Now, mind you, she's not trying to buy something huge for each one of these girls. It's like a little, a little token thing you buy for your friends. And each one gets one. She bought 3. She got 3 of the little things because she expected 3 friends to come. All right. So she goes there. She gets, oh, these are cute. She's not, I say, maybe she doesn't want to get anything too expensive. And I'll go, why'd you get this for us? But just something cute. So she goes and buys 3 little things. She goes up to the counter and she says, I want 3 bags. Why does she want 3 bags? Is it because she's planning to put a barricade between her and the CCTV camera so she can poison coffee behind it? Or does she want a bag for each one of the women because you don't want to carry one bag and say, oh, here's a bottle for you. Here's a bottle for you. It's not a good way to give out gifts. And maybe the reason the bag is fairly large, considering the size of the small bottle, is because it's the only size they used. I don't know. I have to go to the store and I have to say, if I buy this, what bag would you put it in? Now, would they put it in a teeny little bag, or is this just a standard bag that they give to everybody? So she ended up with 3 somewhat larger bags for these 3 bottles. This has been made out to be a big premeditated plan that she's going to go to this restaurant. And here she comes in, by the way. Here she arrives, and this is at one point, and she's supposedly surveilling the place to determine where the CCTV cameras are so she can sit someplace where she won't be able to be seen. I'm going to say, if you're going to go poison somebody, pick a place without CCTV cameras, or ones with really high backs where you sit inside something and you can't be seen at all. Why pick something where everybody's pretty much out in the open, which is what it appears to be, because this is the kind of seat she was sitting in right here. And she put these 3 bags on the table. Now, supposedly one of the cameras was behind a plant that was kind of blocked by the plant. The other one was straight across from where she's sitting. So that's why she had to take these bags and line them up on the table and block anybody from seeing what was going on behind the bags. So her plan so far is to arrive at the mall without any real good plan. She's gonna go out and she's gonna do reconnaissance at this place to see whether it's a good place to poison somebody. Look for a table that looks like it might work, then go out and buy some stuff that you can get in big enough bags so she can set up this whole plan. Could she have done this? I guess. But could she just be a girl who came in and was looking for a table that was nice to sit with her friends and went out while she's killing time and bought some presents for them? Also, very likely. All right, so then the next thing happens. So at 4:15, Jessica returned with 3 large paper shopping bags from a bath shop, supposedly presents for her friends. Footage shows her walking around looking for a table. Once she decided, she looked up at the CCTV camera and then placed the shopping bags on top of the table. By doing that, she blocked the view of the CCTV camera directly. She went to sit down behind the bags and made sure it was a solid barrier. Now, I don't know about you, but somebody says here, she was sitting on this huge sofa. She wasn't sitting on that big sofa. She was on the round table. But so why did she then put her shopping bags on the table instead of behind her? You see how they're on a table on the left, and there she has put them behind her. Okay. Or she could put them on the bench, right? Why didn't she do that? This is where I start getting a headache. All right. I'm going to stop here. Look, I'm going to ask you guys, why might she have put the bags on the table? Does anybody have a clue besides setting up a barrier for the CCTV cameras? I wouldn't call those large shopping bags. I don't think so. I think they're kind of like little medium things. You might buy a few items and put them in there, but I don't know if they have smaller ones because you buy one item. They probably just chuck it in that size bag. Standard. Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you. I don't know. I don't shop there. Standard BBW bags. Well, then she wasn't being highly sneaky with doing that, except that they're saying that she got one of those bags for a barrier. All right. There we go. Thank you, Jill. Placing bags on the table may be consistent with gifts. 3 bags, 3 friends. Now, why put them on the table and not on the bench beside you? It's a curved bench. Why not put them on the bench or behind you? Thank you, Wendy and the Sun, to have them in place for a friend's arrival. Yes. For the same reason I don't put my purse on the floor. All right. Now, this is I appreciate this. Oh, it doesn't look like there's a lot of leg room. Not too much, but I go with, I think this to me, Jill has pointed out, consistent with gifts. Now, if you're the hostess, and I think, okay, there's 2 stories here, and I'm not going to say which one is true at this point. She could have just wanted to kill her. So she is setting up everything to kill her. Or she wanted to have this nice date with the girls, and she wanted to be the center of attention in the sense that she was setting everything up. You know, not just we're all just showing up at the same time, we're getting drinks together, and we just sit around. No, she's throwing a little party. So those 3 gifts, she puts them on the table. I think she wants their friends to arrive and see the gifts sitting on the table. She goes, oh, these are for you guys. That kind of thing. That you set them up so they would know they're for them. All right. Then let's see what happens next. And again, this whole thing about her looking at the CCTV camera. You know, I'm not saying she didn't. She wasn't scoping the place out. But just because a person looks in the direction of a CCTV camera does not mean they were searching for the CCTV camera. My God, I've walked in restaurants and look around. I'm looking around the room for a lot of reasons. Not because I want to kill somebody I'm going to be having lunch with, because I'm looking for where's the nicest looking place? Where does it look like the air conditioner isn't blowing on me? Where is it less? What I want to be sure I'm not next to the kitchen, so I have those bangy stuff going on. I want to be sure I'm not sitting next to that booth with 6 children. I want a good lighting. I mean, whatever it is, you look around because this is a special occasion. You want it to be nice. So you look around for the best table for your party. And I'm pretty sure that if I were doing that, I might be looking around, look like I'm looking at damn CCTV cameras. So here we have again. She looks around, so therefore she must be searching for CCTV cameras. There's no proof of that. There's no proof she put the bags on the table to block anything. There's no proof she went and bought the bags so she could block anything. Some of this just is so creative, shall we say. So anyway, what happens next? All right. She went to sit down, then she put them there, and suppose that blocks the CCTV camera. Other thing I have is this. You know, when you see a CCTV camera like this, I really have no freaking clue whether my putting some bags on the table is going to block exactly, you know, the distance between me, because it maybe it looks down over the damn bags. I would not be comfortable thinking, oh, I put some bags on the table. That's going to make sure that nobody can see what I'm doing. I mean, you could try that. You could say, well, if I do things right behind the bags, maybe they won't see. The CCTV footage that I've seen is all so shabby too. It's all like grainy, black and white crap. Can't see really what's going on, which is why, in a sense, they were able to make claims that I don't know were true. Now, what they said could have been happening, but the CCTV is so lousy that it's just somebody's. That's the way they're analyzing it and saying this is what I think is happening, but there's absolutely no proof of it. So anyway, she sits down behind the bags and makes sure it's a solid barrier. A couple of minutes later, she walks over to the bar and orders 3 drinks, 2 cocktails and a Vietnamese coffee. She does do that because that is what everybody asked for. So she is now ordering this, okay? Which she paid for. Then she returned to her table and changed her position behind the bags. Okay, she made the order, all right? She wants to pay for it. In theory, the theory that the prosecution has is because she wants the drinks to arrive before her friend so she can poison the coffee for her. Or she wants to make sure she pays for it. So when her friends arrive, she's got her gift bags and she's got the drinks and already paid for them. She wants to be the hero hostess. She wants to be the one giving the party. She wants to be special. All right. We could be either one, but just picking one and saying this is what is true doesn't make it true. All right. Then she changes her position behind the bags. What does that even mean? She's sliding into this seat. Let's look at it again. This is the seat. She's sliding in there. Depends how much she feels like sliding when they're not there yet. I don't even know what does that mean? All right. At 4:24, a waiter brought over the drinks. All right. Some of the problem here is that they think she got the drinks awfully early because their friends are not supposed to be there till 5. They actually don't show up till 5:15, so they're actually late. So the drinks sit around for 45 minutes, 50 minutes, which is not a good thing because if the iced coffee is not going to be so icy, right? So one could fault her for why is she getting them so early? But she must be getting them that early because she wants to poison them. Or poison the one drink. She's got to make sure she's got the time to poison. Well, the poisoning is only going to take 1 second anyway, it's not going to take a long time to poison the drink. So why is she there that early? Well, again, if she wants to be the hostess, if you have questionable Jakarta traffic, they're supposed to be there at 5. She doesn't know when they're really leaving. What if they show up at 4:45 and she hasn't ordered the drinks yet? Then she can't put on the show. So, she orders it in time where she thinks if they show up early, the drinks will be there. That would be I think that's more reasonable than she needs 40 minutes to poison a drink. All right. So the waiter brings over the drinks. Jessica made sure all the drinks were behind the shopping bags. Made sure. Well, first of all, 2 of those drinks don't matter, do they? So only one drink makes any difference that's behind the damn bags. Why does she care about the other 2 drinks? She's not poisoning them. So again, this makes no sense. On camera, once the waiter had gone, Jessica moved again to the center of the half-moon-shaped booth seat. So in theory, they're saying that since Mirna was going to be sitting in the middle with the coffee, and Jessica was going to be to one side, and the other girl is going to be on the other side, you see. So she's going to put her in the middle, and the coffee is going to be in the middle. So she slid in behind the coffee, supposedly. All right. And then it says here, she moved to the center of the half-moon-shaped booth seat. Again, you can see it here. There's the half-moon-shaped booth seat. All right. Now, on camera, you can see her movements. Not very much. It's all blurry and pixely. She was busy. She was busy. She's behind she's sitting around for 30, 40 minutes she's got her things on the table. She's busy. Well, I'm busy all the time. I'd be sitting there with my damn phone, checking things out, looking at these things, reading crap. I don't know what I'd be doing. Blowing my nose, fixing my makeup, fixing my sweater. I mean, a lot of things you do when you're sitting on your butt for that long period of time. But of course, that means she's very busy. Well, again, she doesn't need to be busy if she's only poisoning the damn drink. Here comes the coffee. All right, here it is. This is supposed to be like it's Vietnamese iced coffee. The ice is in here, and you put the coffee on here, and you pour the hot, you put the coffee grounds in there, and you pour. This is my example. And so essentially, if this is sitting on the table in front of her, here's what she has to do to poison it. All right, that took me 3 seconds. So, or here's another possibility. What if she sat in the middle and then the guy had put her drink here and she goes, oh, that's in the wrong place. And she moves the drink over. Maybe that's all she was doing. And then looking at her phone. We don't know because you actually can't see it. So they're making this crap up. So the prosecution is making up what she's doing behind the bags. All right. On camera, you can see her movements. No, you can't. She was busy. If there had been a normal cup of coffee in front of her, you could have assumed she was simply pouring a spoon of sugar into it and stirring it. But she'd ordered a cocktail. And the Vietnamese coffee, let's take a minute to describe the way it was served. Bottomless coffee cup with a filter that was placed on top of a glass of ice. The coffee would then drip down through the filter onto the ice. There was no reason to move the top cup off the glass before drinking it, yet Jessica's movements were consistent. I added those air quotes with moving the cup. Really? Because you can't see it. You cannot see her moving the cup. But again, she could have just moved the cup like this and not moved the cup like this. Okay, so once she was done, she moved back to the side of the half moon seat, leaving Mirna's Vietnamese coffee as the centerpiece of the table. Mirna and Hani were 15 minutes late and arrived at 5:15, which means the drinks have been standing on the table for more than 45 minutes. Not her fault that her friends can't show up on time. When Jessica saw them, she got up and the friends hugged and said hi. Mirna's body language showed that she wasn't overly comfortable with Jessica. Really? All right. The three friends then scooched into the booth with Mirna in the middle, flanked by Jessica and Hani. Not paying much attention to Hani, whose drink was also waiting and melting away. It's a cocktail. I don't know why it's melting, but okay. Jessica points to the coffee and says, This is for you, Mirna. You said you wanted it. Oh, my God, that'll show guilt right there. She said, here's your coffee. But she ignored the other friend. Well, because she was closer to Mirna, Anyway, okay. And then the very instant Mirna took a sip of her coffee, she noticed something wasn't right. She pulled the face and said, this is really not good. This is awful. She took a sip. Now, I want to stop right here to say that one of the biggest problems we have in this case is we have no idea how much she ingested of the coffee. And I'll get into the whole issue of how much of the poison would have to be in here to cause her with one small sip to die, and all the different issues that come with that. She said it was awful. Then Mirna turns to Hani and asks her to try it. Hani didn't feel like taking a gulp, but she dipped the end of her straw into the coffee. I assume that may have been something she said that she had done. She dipped it in, okay, and licked the end of the straw. Hani had less than a drop of Mirna's coffee. Mirna then turned to Jessica and said she should try it, but Jessica didn't want to, again, implying guilt. But I'm going to say, if both my friends go, oh my God, that's gross, I'm not going to try it. It's assigning some motive behind this. Like she knows what's in it, so she's not going to touch it. Maybe she's just like, well, that's okay. You two have already figured out something wrong with that coffee. All right. So then the coffee remained untouched as the girls tried to work out what the problem was. Mirna waved her hand in front of her face, which you see her, that you can see. She's like this. Now, like she could smell something bad. But again, there's no proof that anybody smelled anything bad. This can also be done because you're starting to feel overheated and dizzy. Okay, and that could be because she was poisoned, but it could also be because she had another health condition that was causing that. Then suddenly, next moment, Mirna thrust her head back violently. That is true. You can see her in the very crappy CCTV going like this. Vomit foamed out of her mouth as she proceeded to have a seizure. As soon as it started, it stopped and Mirna collapsed. Chaos ensued with waiters and the manager rushing over to help. Hani called her name and tried to wake her up, but Jessica just sat there quietly without reacting or helping. Okay, now here again, I looked around, I watched that stuff. Now, here's a picture of her. She's standing up at this point, and she's looking. Now, this is just one where she's just looking around, but there's other pictures of her looking over, looking upset, and like this. Now, there are people who say that because she didn't throw herself onto the floor to help her friend who has had this whatever happened to her. Now, mind you, look at how many people are there. There's a huge number of people who are all there. The staff of the restaurant is run over, and the other girl's there, and she is there. She keeps looking around. You can see her move around and look at her from different angles and look very upset. But again, she must be guilty because she didn't try to do something for her friend. I would like to know what the hell she's supposed to do for her. She had a seizure. She's foaming at the mouth. Now she's unconscious. Well, you call for help. That's basically it. You call for an ambulance. Other than that, I don't know what, if you're a person who's really comfortable with, your EMT or something. My daughter used to, she was an ambulance driver and EMT. Yeah, she would barrel her way in there and do crap. I, on the other hand, worked at hospitals for 13 years of my life as a sign language interpreter. I was a great companion. I interpreted really good, but I've never been good at hands-on nursing care. I'm not good at that stuff. I can stand calmly. I can be very calm in a very terrible situation. I will go dead calm. I can handle bad situations in dead calm. As long as all I need to do is manage things or speak. But as far as getting on the floor and doing something for somebody, I'm going to be just like her. I'm going to stand there and just go, because that's not my thing. And apparently it's not her thing. She didn't know what to do. She's just standing there. Oh, and then they said the reason she scratched her hand was because touching cyanide gives you an itchy hand. I'm like, so does nerves. Oh my God, what's happening? Besides which, I don't know why she's holding cyanide in her hand, bare hand. So that makes no sense either. So again, we see a signing of reasons for what she does, which have no bearing, have no proof in the evidence. So at this point, again, what we have is, let me recap. Nothing particularly, in my opinion, was unusual about the entire setup. That she went early, that she bought some presents, that she put the bags on the table, that she got the drinks for the friends. I don't see any of that as proof of a premeditated homicide. That is not proof. Now, could she have been doing that? Yes. Could she have put cyanide in that coffee? Yes. I just don't have any proof she did it. Just because you didn't like her mannerisms doesn't make her, that's not proof she did it. We so far have no proof she got hold of any cyanide. We have nobody saw her put cyanide in the drink. Nobody saw her do anything that was that suspicious, except for in the minds of the prosecution and people who hated her. They want to make her look bad by saying she didn't do this and she shouldn't have done that. Okay, then something else happens. As first responders rush in to help Mirna, Jessica confronted the manager and demanded to know what they put in the coffee. And so this is a big thing. Oh my God. So the manager is there and she goes, what'd you put in the coffee? And supposedly the manager immediately felt uneasy and said, she's creepy. She must have put something in the coffee, or she wouldn't have asked that question. Well, I'm going to say, if my friend said, "Ooh, this is gross," and my other friend said, "Ooh, yes, it is gross," and then my friend was, I would ask, what the hell was in the coffee? Again, it's a perfectly normal question. She had every reason to ask that. And as a matter of fact, if I had put something in the coffee, do you think I would say, what'd you put in the coffee? Because that way it might get tested. I think I would just accidentally knock that sucker off the table, make sure it's smashed on the ground or something. Or I just dump it in a plant, something. They have all these plants. But I sure as hell wouldn't say, did you put something in there? And point it out. So the manager felt uneasy straight away. Why was this friend going on about what's inside the drink? Because her friend said something is wrong with it. The manager told staff not to throw away what was left of Mirna's Vietnamese coffee and sealed it. And this is going to be something I question is true. All right. Anyway, she went to the hospital and she died. Okay. So now the question is, there's two major questions. One is, did she have cyanide in her system? And supposedly, let me go look at this now. Supposedly, here's the issue about the cyanide in her system. All right. Now, hold on. What is this picture? Okay. I can't. Hold on a second. I got it. Okay. Oh, no, I want to come back to that. That's Daddy. And I want to talk about Dad in a bit, because I do think that might have some bearing. Let me see if this is the. Okay, no. There it is. Okay. Sorry. Trying to find it. All right. So because she didn't get the autopsy. So what they did was they checked her stomach and bunch of other organs out, did tests without doing anything hugely invasive. 70 minutes after she supposedly drank this stuff, 0 cyanide seen in her system. 3 days later, 0.2 milligrams. And that meant that it was so small, it could have simply been from the embalming stuff or anything else. It's just so minor. What do you need to die from it? 50 to 176 milligrams. Actually, a good portion of time, you need it to be 300 milligrams. It's quite a lot of cyanide. Now, mind you, that when I say a lot, it could be this much, but it has to be a strong enough dose, because people have encountered cyanide before and not died. If they get a tiny dose like that, they're not going to die. So there had to be way more cyanide going into her system than this. Okay, so now we run into, if she got a dose at least this high, if not 200 to 300 milligrams, why is that? Why didn't it show up at all in her system? And why 3 days later is it still hardly showing up in her system? Well, I don't know. Maybe because she wasn't poisoned? If she wasn't poisoned, then she had to die of something else. What did she die of if she didn't die of? What was the other thing she could have died of? We don't know, because they never did an autopsy. All they knew when they did the autopsy was there wasn't enough poison in her system to prove she died of cyanide poisoning. Now, something else that is not unlikely she could have died of is an aneurysm. An aneurysm comes on very quickly. The behaviors she showed were quite similar to an aneurysm. Supposedly she went up like she's a problem with, she was doing this, and then she had like this, and then she started seizing and fell out and all that. Aneurysms are like that, and you die pretty quickly from an aneurysm, one that blows up in your head like that. But they didn't do any autopsy. They didn't check her brain out to see if there was an aneurysm. So we'll never know. In that case, I think the case should have been thrown out right there. Okay, so could she have died of something else? Yes. Was there proof she died of cyanide poisoning? No. So now we're down to the only thing, because all this circumstantial stuff is a bunch of nonsense. So there's only one thing that would convince me, or at least put me in a position to think, at least we know the coffee's poisoned. All right. So supposedly they took that coffee and analyzed it and came up with, let me see what the number was. Hold on a second. Oh, where did I put the number? Hold on. I'm going to flash a bunch of stuff. No. Well, here, by the way, the cyanide, this is something else. I said they had it originally in a glass and they poured it in this bottle. And the claim was that if it was really cyanide, that the gas would come out of the bottle and kill everybody, or everybody would faint in the room. And they did a thing during the trial where they're like, I'm going to unleash this. Everybody's like, ah! And then he's like, see, nothing. I've looked that up. I don't know that there's an accuracy to that. If there is gas, there is cyanide in gas form. I don't really know if it's in liquid form, and in liquid that if you open up a bottle of it actually spreads through the room. I don't know. I could not find any info on it. But here, let's go to how much will be in there. All right. Supposedly in the glass, they found 7,400 milligrams, which is very high. All right. Remember, I'm going to go with 300. This is the lethal dose. Let's go with 300 because that seems to be more accurate. 300 milligrams is what you need to die. And look what's supposedly in the glass, 7,400 milligrams. All right. Now, you need 300. All right. Now, here's my point when I have this in here. All right. So here you have this. This is the liquid. So in that liquid, they're saying that there was 7,400 milligrams. Something was poured in here in this liquid. Now, the question would be, she only took a tiny sip. She's not getting 7,400 milligrams. She's not like if she guzzled the whole damn thing, yeah, I mean, that would be 7,400. She's not. She's going to take this off, And she sipped it. And I think it was with a straw. Ooh. All right. And so now the question is, how many sips would this be? I need water anyway. Okay, I'm up to 10 now. Mind you, there was ice in the glass. And if you put the 7,400 milligrams in the glass and she drank some of it right away, the 7,400 milligrams would be in less water than if the ice had melted. So that's another whole issue. But it's been sitting there for supposedly 50 minutes. So I'm assuming maybe the ice did melt. You're pouring hot coffee over it. So it's only going to stay cold for so long. So I'm going to say it was a pretty full glass of that. Did I just drink? Let's just go with 20. It's not like I drink anymore. Let's go with 20. 20. All right. Now we've got, so a sip would be, okay, so now I got 7,400. I'm going to my 7,400. Let me find my calculator. All right. 7,400 divided by, I'm going to say 20. 370. Aha. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that maybe she only needed one sip, because if this stuff was poured in and they found that much milligrams in there, she really did only need one sip to get like 300, enough to kill her. All right, so now I don't know what kind of cyanide was supposedly put in there, whether it was powder, whether it was a pill, or whether it was a liquid. And of course, they don't seem to know. And I haven't seen any documentation, zero documentation whatsoever about what was in that glass. And apparently they lost some of that documentation. So I wanted to know exactly how they did their testing, what was the milliliters that was, actually in the glass at the time, what was the normal Vietnamese coffee thing, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't find any of that. So I'm doing my own little exhibition here. All right. So theoretically, if this much was put in there by somebody and she took that much, at least a reasonable sip, theoretically, maybe 300 milligrams could get into her body. But supposedly they didn't have any evidence of cyanide in her body. And the days later, they still didn't have any evidence. So where's the 300 milligrams gone to? Shouldn't it be somewhere more than what is considered like something so minor it could be from any natural cause? So now we come down to the issue of the cyanide in the glass. All right, so here's the problem. Chain of custody did not happen. And some of it's not the fault of the restaurant people. I mean, somebody keels over and you say, hey, I better save this glass, this cup, I better preserve it, which the manager seems to have wanted to do. However, here is something, let's see if I can find what the manager said, because I thought it was really interesting. She says, what did I do with it? Hold on. Where's the part where the manager's freaking out? That's not it. Oh, where's my manager? Okay. Okay, I can't find it. Darn it. I lost it. The manager says they were freaking out about this because they were, we already have Jessica saying, hey, what you put in the glass? Now, this is a very high-end cafe with a really fancy, very high prices, very fancy everything. If anything was in there that was their fault, they are going to get screwed. Their reputation can go in the toilet. People won't want to come there anymore. So this is a problem, in my opinion, when you have a poor chain of custody and you're not sure what people are actually doing. So she says she saved that. She took that coffee because she thought something's fishy about this. So she grabbed that glass and she put something around it and sealed it to give to the police. But look at this. In the show, it says this, which is so weird. Let me find it. Okay, where are we, people? Here we go. All right, right here. She says, then I wrapped it with plastic wrap. The barista then says, I wrapped the coffee and left it. What? Wait a minute. Who did what? How come two people both say they wrapped the coffee? I don't understand this. Now, I don't know what you can see in their CCTV as far as the back, or they're working at. They supposedly both tasted it also. And again, sipped. They supposedly sipped it. He said he smelled it. I think she said she sipped it. I want to know how much she sipped. We don't know that. I can't find that information out. She tasted it supposedly. Pretty sure she was the one that said she tasted it. And did she go like this? Because no, think about it. If you are you thinking it's cyanide, or are you thinking maybe it's something just crappy from the kitchen? What does it taste funny? They all said it smelled strong and had this turmeric look. I don't know the accuracy of that either. And supposedly cyanide is clear and it's not going to turn things turmeric looking, but I can't figure that one out either. But anyway, one of them at least sipped it to see whether it was what was wrong with it. But they didn't get sick. They didn't die. So she says she bagged it essentially to give to the police. Then he says he bagged it to give to the police. So I'm having a problem here. The chain of custody is a problem, because nobody knows who handled what. And then the police themselves moved it from that glass and put it in a bottle, and they've lost the paperwork. So now tell me one thing you think could be possible when you got two different people giving a story about how they wrapped this sucker up. What could have happened in the kitchen? In the kitchen in back, it showed them doing a lot with that glass. Okay, interesting. How would you get 7,400 milligrams into the glass? Well, it's milligrams, it's not milliliters, so I would assume it's not very much. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. Shoddy handling of the evidence. Well, that's true, but that's before. Yeah. Well, after they got to the police, they moved things without proper documentation. Before, you can't entirely blame the people. You could have said they should have just left it on the table and blocked it off and not touched anything. Jessica's fingerprints were not on the glass, by the way. That's interesting. Mere presence of cyanide versus quantity. Yeah, we are not quite sure. Yeah, somebody else tasted it. I believe it was her. And then I think he said he smelled it, but there's a bunch of different stories about that as well. Yeah, they sucked that. Let's see. So, all right, let me take you to the kitchen. She said they were freaked out. Top high-end place. Somebody kills over. What is the one thing somebody who does not want their restaurant to be accused of poisoning their people with some cleaning chemical or something else? What might they do behind the scenes before they handed that crap over to the police? What do you think? What might they do if they don't want to get in trouble? If they don't want the establishment to get in trouble? I'm waiting for the responses here. It's very slow. Well, I'm going to tell you, since I don't see the responses coming in. Usually you're so fast at this. Okay, we have some. Okay, thank you. Glad you did the mathematics on that one. Could switch glasses. Go check and hide. Go switch glasses. Make a new drink. Well, let's see. We're going to get in a shitload of trouble. Here, dump that. Just get another glass. Pour that in it, and we'll put a wrap around it. Here, please. Then they check it, and the restaurant doesn't get in trouble. So because these two have, when I saw this in the movie and the documentary, I'm like, why are they both saying they wrapped the thing? I got a problem with this. And why are they saying they're so freaked out about it? They could get in trouble. They're testing out to see, they were testing things. So what could have done this to, what they thought the restaurant had caused it. In which case, they may have done something to get rid of. Well, there we go. We needed somebody with chemistry here. So the fact that they could do this, we don't know that they did this. Hey, if you can assign all the things to Jessica that she supposedly did, checking out CCTV cameras and hiding things, why can't these two just toss a drink out and put a new one in there so that the restaurant doesn't get in trouble? I would say it's very possible. Now, interesting thing is, what happens now? So one could say, they talked about it, but didn't actually do it. So they both said they did it. I'm not sure. Yeah. Cover your CYA time. Right. Okay. So let's do this whole thinking thing through here. If I were a defense attorney at this point. Okay. So I'm like, I think they're just doing a CYA. They're concerned the restaurant's going to go down. So they just tossed it because they didn't think cyanide. They might've just thought something else made her sick, some cleaning fluid or something. And so they tossed it and just put some new coffee in there, and they give that to the police. Now we have an interesting problem. All right, so the police check this. Now there's a couple things so they get this thing, and they come up with nothing that poisoned the girl. But by that time, there's a lot of theories that she was poisoned. It was already out there that she had been poisoned. And after 3 days, when they came up with a tiny bit of cyanide, then they could go that direction. Now, look what Dad said. I thought Dad said something quite interesting. And this, because I say he was very much a person who does what he wants to do and makes things happen. He said, at that time, I knew she was the murderer. Of course, I was committed. I carried out my own investigation because I was annoyed. And this isn't him talking, it's him talking. Jessica had to be caught. Supposedly, he had a meeting with the barista and that manager woman. And they don't remember what it was about. But now, he's a very wealthy, powerful man. So once they had the stuff in a bottle, anybody could have added cyanide to the bottle and said, see, there's cyanide in the bottle. They could have determined how much cyanide it needed to be in the bottle in order to say, hey, if she took one sip, we better be sure that one sip would kill her. So we're going to put in the amount needed into the bottle that's 7,400 milligrams, that would make it so if she took one sip, she would keel over. That could be true. They could have put cyanide in after the fact. They could not have put cyanide in, but gave a report that there was cyanide in. Am I saying that's what happened? No. But on the other hand, I can't say it didn't happen, because the girl has not got enough cyanide in her body to kill her. There's no evidence cyanide ever killed her. And the baristas, that thing about that both of them saying they sealed that thing up is a little questionable. The chain of custody is botched, no cause of death. The only way we can say that Jessica could have killed her is if absolutely that the drink that was served had cyanide in it at the very time she sipped this. It had to be in there when she took the sip, not added later, not lied about later, but absolutely there when she took the sip. So if you 100% believe that the baristas handled things properly and didn't do something weird in the kitchen, if you believe that the chain of custody with the loss of paperwork is still believable, and there's no corruption, nobody paid anybody off, and did any of that, then you could say, in spite of the fact there wasn't proof of cyanide killing her, in spite of the fact there was no autopsy, in spite of the fact there's no proof she ever got any cyanide or had any in her possession, there's no proof she wanted to kill her, there's no proof that she was hiding behind those bags actually poisoning anything, if there's just no proof except for the fact that you believe that there was cyanide in this drink when she went to sip it. If that were true, if that were absolutely true, there's cyanide in there. Who could have done it? Now, the concept that the father wanted to kill his daughter and hired a barista to know which drink she was going to drink, that's all nonsense. Could it be a barista who was a nutter, one of those who puts like the Tylenol murderer, people who send, poisons through the mail to kill people? I mean, could a barista thought this will be cool? I'm going to throw cyanide in this drink and see who dies. Ha ha ha. Could there be a crazy barista? Yes. Could be a serial killer type. Could be. It could be there was another theory. Let's see, that some other cafe wanted to ruin these people's reputation. So they had somebody poison the drink so that this would all happen in their cafe. And then all the customers would go to the other cafe, which seems kind of unlikely. Actually, the murder actually got them more business. So go figure. But they became really famous then. And everybody wanted one of those. Yeah, give me that drink with cyanide in it. I cannot come up with any, outside of a crazy barista, I can't come up with another good reason. So if there really was cyanide in the coffee at the time she drank it, then Jessica put that in here, or a crazy barista did it. But where's the proof of who? It's questionable that there was cyanide in here. There was not proof that cyanide killed her. The autopsy wasn't done to prove that something else could have killed her, like an aneurysm. Now, is it a little unusual that she would have taken a taste and go, oh my God, this is terrible? Could it be just a weird coincidence that she had an aneurysm after she took a sip? It's somewhat unusual. Could it happen? Yes. Is it probable? No. But is it possible? Yes. In a court of law, unless this chain of custody proves that there really was cyanide in here, I don't think anybody should have been convicted, because they didn't prove cyanide killed her. They didn't prove something else didn't kill her. And they never proved she put cyanide in here, except they thought her behaviors were strange behind some bags and that she wasn't as pretty as her, so she must be jealous. So I stand at the point where I would say, now there were 3 judges. This is interesting. The Indonesian system has 3 judges and not a jury. So, I should be super happy because I love judge situations, not juries. I don't know how the Indonesian system exactly works, the judge system, whether the judges are entrenched within the prosecution and police system, entrenched so that they're not like my idea of a judge system is people like me are on a long list. And so when a murder case comes up, they just pick 3 to 5 people off that list, and they're just professionals with training in crime scene analysis. We're not in good with anybody. And we're picked, we're just picked out of a hat, outside of at least having the training and having our names in the hat. So we wouldn't have, be such part of the system. I don't know quite what works there, whether they lean toward the prosecution or not. But I think that considering the evidence they had, I think everything is, and their opinion is depending on that cyanide really being in that coffee cup. And once they do that, I think they're probably eliminating the barista who's just a crazy guy and saying, well, therefore it's obvious she did it. That's what the prosecution is. Obvious she did it. All the circumstantial evidence just show that she did it. She was the one hiding behind those bags, and she had the opportunity to poison the coffee. She's the only one that was there once the barista put the thing down. So somebody could have poisoned it before they put it on the table, mind you. So that opens up everybody in that restaurant, essentially, or anybody in the kitchen. Anybody could have poisoned that before it hit the table. But if it wasn't poisoned before it hit the table and it was poisoned after it hit the table, well, then it is her. But was that actual evidence sufficient? My opinion, the answer to that is no. I don't know that I would have found her guilty, and that's unusual for me, but I'm bothered by the whole way. There's so much of this case was crazy stuff like, oh my God, why did she get 3 bags? because she was getting gifts for 3 people. The other girl was supposed to show up, and she showed up. She called at 5 o'clock and said, I'm on my way. And they said, well, forget it. She's dying here, so might as well not come. But I'm disturbed by the way everything was handled. There is no excuse for there not being an autopsy. There's no excuse for the lack of chain of evidence on this. Whole bunch of stuff. And just the stuff that presented in court was horrific. Oh, that's a good question, Clarissa. For some nefarious reason, the dad sure wanted it to be her. Well, I would say he thought it was her. I mean, if you were going to pick somebody, you would think it was probably her. But by the time, he thought she was a whack job and she had psychological problems and she was jealous of his daughter. I'm not saying he's wrong. And he wanted to make sure that somebody paid for her death. I think that's the kind of guy he was. Molly says, her symptoms seem more consistent with aneurysm. Interesting that you say that. I have been going back and forth reading on exactly what would be cyanide poisoning as opposed to aneurysm. Now, one thing, supposedly, she did not have a red face, which you get a lot of times when you do cyanide, you get this red face from it. She supposedly had a blue face. Now, Daddy supposedly doctored some photos and sent them over with her red face. But according to everybody else, she had a blue. She didn't have a red face. So that was interesting as well. I found the symptoms more similar to an aneurysm myself, which is why I came up with the concept of aneurysm, because aneurysms happen very quickly. They happen to young people as well. And the symptoms did indeed resemble an aneurysm. So it could simply be that, it could be that the coffee just sucked and it was something got into the coffee and she said, oh, this is disgusting. And for whatever reason, an aneurysm. And then the people in the kitchen freaked out and just dumped it, So now if there was something in there that wasn't cyanide, the police are never going to find that. So now they got coffee with nothing in it. They're like, yeah, but we think cyanide killed her. So they will just, I don't know. I can't, it's one of these things where I'm not a big conspiracy theorist and I'm not a big person for all these people are corrupt and they're doing all these corrupt things. But it was a poorly handled case and a lot of ridiculousness in it. And because of that, I'm bothered by how the whole thing played out. Good question, Wendy. I looked that up too, and I could not find anything on that, but I did wonder. But then the other person tasted it, and the other people said it tasted crappy too. So I'm going to say that's probably not so. The coffee sat there for 45 minutes doesn't sound delicious. I don't know. I drink coffee. I make my coffee in the morning. I make Cuban coffee in the morning, or my version of it. And it's in a container, and I'll drink that the next day. But mine doesn't have milk in it. Something left out with milk is not as good. But I think they've got sweetened condensed milk in there, so it might be different. I don't know if it would taste that bad. But then again, maybe somebody screwed up the making of it for some reason. And so it had a bitter, icky taste. I don't know. Don't like my iced coffee melted. Sounds like a case for the Innocence Project. Yes. Well, I would like, so I'm not fond of the Innocence Project, right? Because I think they get a lot of people out who are guilty, really guilty, and they know they're guilty. I am on the fence. Do I think she could have? Again, it all comes down to whether there was really that much cyanide and that was in that glass. I just don't have enough evidence on her that proves she put the cyanide in the glass. But if there were cyanide in the glass, then I'd kind of wonder how it got there. And there's only a couple methods. And I say the crazy barista or her. But yeah, I find it interesting that she comes to, where did she get them? Why don't they have a trail where she bought the cyanide from? Something. I don't understand their investigation. This is one of the problems. That the information on this case is very sketchy, and it's all over the place, and a whole lot of people making up stuff that they just don't know is true or not true. Most people, it's funny, most people originally thought she was guilty, very guilty. And now over time, they've, which often happens too, when a person is in prison for a while, you start feeling bad for them. Other people start, coming up with other possibilities. The documentary opens up some doors and you go, oh, maybe she's not guilty. Maybe she's an innocent woman who's been stuck in there for 10 years. Didn't do a thing to her. And so now I think I think it's split now. I guess that's possible. But, the barista should know. They said it had a really weird taste. And that the supposed turmeric looking thing would be weird. But here's where I'd like to see some experiments. I would like to see you put some cyanide in that glass, let it sit there for 45 minutes. And I want to see what it looks like. I want to see if I want that experiment done over again. Just see whether it would turn turmeric looking. Because what I read, it was just clear. So I don't understand why it would be turmeric looking, but I couldn't find any explanation for it. Because nobody seemed to have done that test, or maybe they did, but it's just not logged anyplace. It's not in the documentary. It's not on 60 Minutes, which I also watched. There's another person who did something. Her name is Rotten Mango. She's got 1.5 million subscribers. And she does a lot of fictionalizing of this thing where she talks about this is what they said and this is what they did. I'm like, no, they didn't. Stop doing it. So again, we have people creating scenarios which we just have no idea is true or not. So let's see what else you might have to say here. That was like no other court proceeding I have seen. It was a weird one. That really was a weird one. Reasonable doubt, definitely reasonable doubt. Yeah, I mean, definitely I would say I have reasonable doubt. Enough that I would not have convicted her. I might have thought she could have well done it, but I don't think I could have convicted her, not with what they had. Yes, that is true. Husband took her to the hospital, not an ambulance. I'm not sure what the situation there is. It could well be that the traffic is so bad you can't get the ambulance through to get the person to the hospital. And so in other words, it's faster to just take them yourself. So that's also let me see. Let me go back to the bottom now. So comments not quite related to this show. But anyway, that's where I stand on this. I would have reasonable doubt. I would love to know more about this case. I would like to, it's one of these cases I would like to get the forensic details on. And the fact she didn't get an autopsy, that is outrageous. I mean, in my opinion, if the family prevented her from getting that autopsy, she shouldn't have been convicted because she did not get a fair trial, in my opinion, because of the lack of autopsy. This is just outrageous. And, so if the family didn't want to get the autopsy and they didn't do it, well, then they shouldn't be able to charge anybody with anything. But again, I think Daddy had a lot of power. I do. This one. Oh, yes. Dad sure made a weird comment on her grave, confessing to being with a lot of women. Yes. That was creepy. So he's at her grave and he's going like, sorry, honey, blah, blah, blah. And I know I've been, like I've had a lot of women and, but I think he was trying to show how honest and open he was or something like that. It was like, what was the purpose of doing that in front of the cameras? He was a creepy dude. I mean, he was a person I would not trust. He would be a person I would think would bribe the living hell out of somebody. I'm sorry, guy, but I think you would flaunt that money. He did flaunt that money. You could see it. He had a lot of money. And it seemed like when he made up his mind for something, he was going to find out a way to take care of it. because he said he investigated this crime. How did he investigate this crime? I would like to know. What did his little fingers get into? The forensics, the reports, the cyanide issues. I want to know what he did and see whether he did indeed play a part in the whole issue of the cyanide. The whole issue here is just the cyanide in the drink. That is the big issue, because since it isn't proven she died of cyanide, and you really can't prove that she put the cyanide in any. We don't have proof. If we saw her taking the top off and taking a little bottle and going like this, I'm going, okay. There's none of that. It's only supposition. Oh, she did this, she did that behind. You're just making stuff up. So since we do not know that she actually even had cyanide on her person, that she even ever got cyanide, or that she ever put the cyanide in, I at least would like to know if there was cyanide in that damn glass. I would like to know that. But I don't know that we ever will, because I wonder who could have been around mucking around with things. And yeah, and I say I'm not a big person about, always thinks people bribing people and corruption, but I'm not so sure in this case. Was the interviewer asking him to put the gun away? Yes. I guess they were going out to shoot the gun at he was proving how manly he was and how tough he was, and the interviewer freaked out because he was handling a gun. So. I always wonder when people do documentaries, since I've done documentaries, is most of that documentary is on the cutting room floor, like 99% of it. So you never know whether even what the father said, what questions were asked before they did the filming of that one sentence. So you never know how people are manipulated during the documentaries as well. So I don't know, maybe the prosecution has a way better case than I'm aware of, because the documentary sort of was trying to, I think the documentary's whole point was, let's just throw something at the wall. Let's just throw something out there so we can have some controversy. I didn't see them as particularly Innocence Project people, or particularly just telling a story or prosecution people. I think they just wanted, since this was a popular case, let's just throw something out that'll make people think. As a lot of documentaries do that. They just want to cause problems. And this may have done it. They may have succeeded in that. Oh, yes, he was definitely loving the attention. So, we talk about this girl seeming like she's like, excited about the attention. Well, so is he. So I don't know, how much is cultural. I don't know how much is encouraged by the documentary people, how much is selected by the media. Like, if she smiled a couple of times because maybe somebody tickled her, or maybe somebody said something funny and she smiled in front of the crowd. Did she look sad 50 other times, but nobody saw those? You never actually know. He didn't show much grief. Well, by the time they did the documentary, she'd been dead for a long time. He did show one moment where he seemed to, I looked like he stopped and started tearing up. But he also said he's a tough guy. He said that. He says, I'm tough. And when I found out she was dead, I said, what did she die of? Instead of, oh my God, my daughter's dead. What did she die of? He's very, very kind of cold and tough. That doesn't make him a killer, but I do think it could well mean that he is, when he makes a determination that he's going to get something accomplished, he's cold-blooded enough to do it. I think the interviewer was scared. Could be, the guy's got a gun. He's like, this guy's a nutbird. It's like, I'm going to die doing this documentary. The guy's going to flip out. Oh, Lord. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Yeah. I think that's also the reason the documentary is named that. Is mostly that they think she's ice cold. So misleading. Yeah. I say it was definitely a very, very confusing documentary. Some people didn't think it was terribly well made. That's why I went and looked at other things on the internet and tried to find as much. I tried to find documentation, but I just couldn't come up with it. So, but I think, the reason I decided to do it after all was because I was so interested in this whole story about this massive premeditated murder based on shopping at what is it? Bed Bath and Beyond. Is that what it is? Whatever it is there. The bath store and buying soap and planning all this out and finding the cameras. I just thought some of that just sounds so, it just is so creative, that there's the simpler story for if you're looking at females planning a thing like this, it makes much more sense. The story I came up with, I'm not saying my story's right either, but the explanation I came up with why she did what she did is much more sensible than their version of why she did what she did. And yet I think that's what that's one of the number one things that got her convicted. They convinced people that she was poisoning behind those bags. And that's what she purposely put them out there to block what she was doing with the drink, which could be true, but I just don't know that that's proof. Somebody's viewpoint of why she did all these things, they call that circumstantial evidence. That's not really circumstantial evidence. I'm trying to think of circumstantial evidence, which is much more meaningful. Like what can I'm trying to come up with an example, and I'll just blank here. Circumstantial evidence that if a month before she was murdered, she was on the internet typing in, where can I get cyanide? That's circumstantial evidence because it's specifically linked to exactly what happened to her. And that is showing a premeditation, a plan. Why would you be asking about that? How quickly does somebody die of cyanide? Where can I buy it? How can you cover it up? If you have all those in there, ways to kill people a month before you kill her, okay, that's circumstantial evidence. There was one case, I'm trying to remember it now. The issue was something to the effect of, they thought this, I did a show on it, but I can't remember the exact circumstances now, but there was a belief that this woman had gone and killed this guy, something like that, with a specific gun. And I think she owned the gun, but the gun disappeared, something like that. Anyway, that same day before that guy ended up dead, a woman that looked just like her came into a gun store and bought bullets for a gun like that. And it turned out it was her. Now, just because she bought bullets for that gun doesn't mean she fired the gun. But you got to wonder why she drove all this distance to buy the bullets that day. That's circumstantial evidence. She went and bought some. She paid for the drinks. She bought some soaps and the store put them in 3 bags, and she set them on the table. That's interesting, but I don't call that solid circumstantial evidence that you should convict somebody on that. Again, the problem is that if the prosecution says there were absolutely 100% was that level of cyanide in that glass, then you do have to say somehow it got in there before she took that drink. So she does become a number one suspect. And, there's no way around that. But it's just there's a bunch of squirrely stuff with this case. Yes, she has exhausted all her appeals. So she's been in there 10 years. She has 10 more years to serve. Yeah. I almost Googled that. My excuse is I do true crime shows, right? So all the crap that I have on my computer is some really sketchy stuff. Let me tell you, I got a lot of crap on there. They look at it and go, you do not want to date that woman. She's creepy as hell. You should see what's in her YouTube, her internet history. Yeah. But I have an excuse. You may not. Oh, thank you. Supposition. Very good. I've lost all ability to come up with intelligent words these days. Supposition. That is excellent. Right. That is excellent. The 60 Minutes thing made her look more guilty. Yes, that came out earlier. This is the new Netflix thing. That was actually coming out more about the time it happened. Pretty much all the stuff then was she's guilty as heck. And then, Netflix, they like to throw wrenches and things so they can get people to watch the show. So now they're going for she's actually not guilty. But the interesting thing to me was all the things I just brought out about the issues of setting up the date and, ordering the drinks because she wanted to pay for them and, bringing presents. That's not brought up anyplace. I mean, that to me that would make part of a documentary. If I had been in that documentary, that's what I would have said, because that gives some, and I would have talked about these two people both claiming they wrapped up the cup, and are they getting rid of, would they have dumped it? I would have said that. Now, whether they would have put all of what I said in the documentary, because those are my two big things. And the father may be able to influence some aspect of the final thing having strychnine in it. I would have brought those things out. Those were not brought out in the documentary. They should have hired me, but they didn't. Anyway, but so I didn't think the documentary presented enough things that helped her look particularly innocent at all, if that's what they were going for. So this case messes with your head. It rather does. I mean, the mom. Was the mom deceased? I missed that too. I thought the mom didn't want her to have the autopsy, or did he say that her mom wouldn't have wanted to? I'm not actually sure. On that. The lawyer was also an attention hog. Maybe not so clever though. Yeah, the defense lawyer, he was like a huge celebrity lawyer, and he said he took the case, and everybody was all pissed at him because they thought she was guilty, and he was like putting his reputation on the line, and he said he really believes she was not guilty and still does believe she's not guilty. But who knows what he actually thinks, but I was not overly impressed with the defense, and I wasn't overly impressed with the prosecution. It just was. But then again, I wasn't in the courtroom. Maybe there's things I don't know. But that certainly the documentary didn't have good information in it that would clear those things up. But then again, maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe that's the whole problem. Maybe she was just, that should have been reasonable doubt, and there wasn't, and she got convicted anyway because 3 judges thought that circumstantial evidence proved she clearly set up those bags to hide behind them in poison drinks. All right, so actually somebody else brought that to me. I think at the media company that made this said, "Can you do a shout out on that?" And I said, "Well, I don't even know anything about it." And but it's a very interesting case, that's for sure. And I like to do some cases that are, from all around the world, and I had not heard of this one, and it's a good one. It's a good one. That's all I can say. All right, that's it. I'm going to be back Thursday. Will be the hangout. I hate to say it for the folks in the UK. It will be 7 p.m. again, and not 3 p.m. Usually I do every other week, 7 p.m., 3 p.m., 7 p.m., 3 p.m. And this is the 3 p.m. week, but unfortunately, the cleaning ladies didn't come because it was Thanksgiving, so they're coming on Thursday, and I can't do anything till they leave. So, and I need them to come. So I'm going to do it Thursday at 7, and then next weekend I should probably be back to my 3 p.m. schedule for the weekend or somewhere around there, and then during the next hangout. The following week will be a 3 p.m.er. But this was a crazy Thanksgiving weekend, and I was so tired yesterday. I was like, no way I was going to do a show. All I wanted to do was sleep. I was exhausted. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of stuff. There was a second Thanksgiving of the week, and then we drove to Ocean City, Maryland, and we saw the Christmas lights with my granddaughter, and then we bought a Christmas tree, and then we came back and we decorated it, and then my ex-husband made Jamaican food the next morning, and I was just like so tired. So I said, Monday is the earliest I can possibly do this show. So I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving if you had one. We have now only 4 weeks to Christmas. It's so quick in this season, it's like crazy. But anyway, I'm not one who has to do most of the Christmas stuff. So, and I don't do most of the Thanksgiving stuff either. So I kind of coast, I turned all that over to my daughter, and I'm like done with it. So anyway, thank you for all being here. I appreciate it. You know, you're always a great chat room, and I appreciate. Yeah, no good evidence. There was a whole lot of missing evidence in this case, and that should have ended up with reasonable doubt, but it didn't. So, so I'll see you, uh, hopefully on Thursday. Whoever is awake at that particular time. Okay. See you later. Bye.